Testing 1, 2, 3. Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Dr. Nathan Thompson with the Wellness Way Yorkville. Happy Monday, guys. Hope you guys had a great weekend. I am here live, and I am going over something titled, Are you sure about that diet? You sure about that? If you are watching right now, make sure that you say hello. Let me also know where you're watching from. I love to see where people are watching from. And if you are joining me, just say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. Give me a wave. But I'm going to talk about something interesting, probably something that a lot of people have a lot tied to. And I'm going to give you my opinion on some popular diet crazes and why some of them are good, some of them can be bad long term. And I'm going to explain to you why, especially. So, um, what's interesting about nutrition, what's interesting about diets is that a lot of people affix their self esteem to that. And I'm going to explain to you why, or why you may jump from one diet to the other. There's a reason for that, and you can explain that. So, guys, I'm going to talk specifically about diet. Specifically, guys, if you're watching, I'm going to show you the ketogenic diet, the carnivore diet, intermittent fasting, and I'm going to go over the good and some of the bad that can be associated with it as well. So, guys, if you're watching from the Chicagoland area, um, and you want to work with the Wellness Way, you want to work specifically with our office in Yorkville, Illinois, then one of the things I want you to do is get to our next inflammation talk that's coming up Tuesday, August 27th at 6 o'clock p.m. Guys, if you have problems with weight loss resistance, I know I had some discussions with it with people even today. Cancer, no, we don't treat cancer, but we want to optimize the body's response to it. Problems with hormones, infertility, thyroid disease, chronic joint pain, type 2 diabetes, autoimmune conditions, hormone issues. Just remember, hormones are responders. They respond to specific stressors. And so that's why you can't balance your hormones. What you need to do is you need to get rid of the things that's stressing out the body, because that's how the body works. The body doesn't make mistakes. The body responds specifically to stressor and tries to adapt as much as possible. And so if that's you and you've been suffering, this is your chance to make sure that you can work with us and start doing things from a different perspective. So make sure if you're from the Chicagoland area, you can get registered for that event coming up Tuesday, August 27th at 6 o'clock p.m. This is an in-person event. And all you have to do, guys, is I have the link on my profile. You also see a link attached on the chat. And if you can see that, click on that link, and then you will see what one of the things that pops up right away is going to be the inflammation event. That'll send you a link, go straight to Eventbrite, and you can register literally in about 15 to 20 seconds for that event. The only thing that we ask is if you register for it, please make sure that you show up at that event. We have a special gift for you, especially. Okay. Here's another thing that's really exciting. You may not know this as well, but the Wellness Way, we just released a brand new cookbook, and it's called From Scratch. This is a first class book. So this is not a junk book. This was all 100% first class put together. Dr. Patrick Flynn's wife, Christy, who is an unbelievable cook. I know this firsthand. Christy and Dr. Alex Fennelly actually put this together, and it's called From Scratch, Restoring Health with Whole Foods, the Wellness Way. So this is a first class cookbook, guys, and it is now available to you to be able to order. So, guys, if you want to order that cookbook, I highly, highly recommend it. Everything in that cookbook with the photography, I mean, everything is just so expertly done. I've been able to see this. But guys, if you want to order that cookbook, we'll carry some in the office. But if you want to order that cookbook, then I have a link on my link tree. You'll be able to see it, and you can go to the Wellness Way store and you can order it. The only thing that we ask is hey, if you are going to get that cookbook, it will be shipped directly to your house. But just make sure that you have to create an account. And when you do that, just enter in the code 5058 at checkout for that, so they know who's actually referring people to get that cookbook. But guys, this is an awesome cookbook. It's been in the works for over a year. And so this has been done the right way. And I can't recommend that cookbook enough, especially. So coming from someone that doesn't like to cook all that much, this is a great cookbook. Okay. Now, are you sure about that diet? Let's go into this a little bit deeper. Okay. Now, if you ever seen some memes, are you sure about that? About that that guy? This is why I put that up. Maybe it reminds you of that, or if you're a little bit younger, maybe you're like, I've never heard of that before. But if you see this picture and you like, yeah, I remember exactly what that is. So this is me trying to be a little bit funny. All right. Now, when you talk about diet, okay, I'm going to make an assertion here is that I put people on a number of food plans and they were all based off testing. So if you're wondering like what testing do you mean, I'm going to show you kind of what I mean in regards to that. But the biggest thing I would tell you is I couldn't care less about what name it has attached to it, because we love to see the name, we love to follow the name of specific diet plans. But I put people on all kinds of diet plans. This is all based on testing. I should say food plans because I hate the word diet, because diet means you start and at some point you're going to end. But when it comes to building health, it's not something that you should always pat yourself on the back and say, I did a good job and now I'm going to take a break from it for the next 5 years. Your health is something you should wake up and always say, what can I do in order to move it forward as well? But we always like to attach a special name to it. But I've put people on keto, carnivore, paleo, all kinds of things. And a lot of times people look at me with their eyes glazed over. I say, well, it's kind of like the carnivore diet. And they're like, oh, okay, now I understand what you're saying. So it's not meaning that I am going to endorse it, but I'm going to give you the good. I'm going to give you the bad behind it as well. Okay. Now, let me say this is that everyone is looking for the shiny object. That is so true. I'm going to show you in just a second how everyone is looking for the shiny object, as if the strategy is what's going to change their life. And it's not, and then people push discipline and consistency by the wayside. So everyone's looking for the shiny object until it's no longer shiny. Then it's on to the next fad. Okay. And I hate that. If something is good, it will always stay good. And that's why I want you to be very aware of what we would call shiny object syndrome, in which first you see a shiny new thing and then you decide that you're going to do it until you lose interest, and then you just need to move on to something new. Okay. But you're going to see that people suffer from shiny object syndrome so often in regards to nutrition and weight loss and exercise. I'm going to show you that here in just a second. But you need to actually have the presence of mind of saying, do I have shiny object syndrome? I remember in years past when my wife and I, when we owned gyms, she would come in and say, oh, so-and-so love, what they do. They said they're totally on board. I said, those are the people that you need to really be wary of, are the people who suffer from shiny object syndrome, because just as quick as they fall in love with it, it's just as quick as they're out the door looking for some kind of bright, shiny object again in order to do something new. So when it comes to health, or when it comes to nutrition, or when it comes to weight loss, I always will say this is some people, they just grab straws and they try to do as much as they can. And then, finally they're a squirrel, they find a nut, and then something might work for them. But I want you to think of this. If I said, hey, you're in Chicago right now, and I want you to drive to LA, and I'm not giving you a roadmap, will you get to LA? Okay. If I give you no directions, you have no GPS, you don't have a roadmap, you don't have anything. And chances are you may get there, but without a roadmap, without GPS, without some kind of direction, you may take a wrong turn and then decide all of a sudden, I'm in Indiana, I'm heading the wrong way. Then you got to turn around. So when it comes to health, I always say this is that the quickest way from point A to point B is for you to be able to have a map. And what's the map that I'm talking about is testing. See, if you were going to go from Chicago to LA, you need a map in order to get there. And having a map prevents you from taking wrong turns. It prevents you from going in the wrong direction. It prevents you having to pull a U-turn. And it just saves you time and also saves you money. saves you a lot of gas. So this is why testing is so important, especially. Okay. Now, shiny object syndrome, I'm going to show you how pervasive that is, with your mindset. Because so many people just fall in love with shiny object syndrome and they're looking for the next phase, the next fad. This one's going to actually pull me through. And I want you to look at this. Okay. So, one of the things that I did is I went on to Google Analytics and I typed in some keywords just to see, the interest over time. So here's CrossFit, for example, which is a fitness methodology. I've been doing it for 14 years. I don't have shiny object syndrome because it works. No matter, if it's new or if it's not shiny anymore. But what's one of the things that's so interesting is if you look at this in about 2014, it reached this peak as far as interest, and you can see that it's actually has tailed off quite a bit. Just think of this. It hasn't changed at all, but the interest in it, because it's no longer new, it's no longer exciting. And so you'll see it actually spike up a little bit. And that spike that you see is actually after every CrossFit Games, in which people start searching for it a little bit more. But you can see that the search for it has actually considerably gone down over the last 10 to 12 years. It hasn't changed. It's not less effective. It's just people are looking for the new thing. Okay. Now here's the carnivore diet, which I see a lot of people that are just absolutely gung-ho about it. So here's the carnivore diet. And the carnivore diet, one of the interesting things is that no one was talking about it until about 2018. And then you see that a lot of people, it's reached its peak as far as the number of people actually searching for the carnivore diet. Why do people start to search for it? Well, one of the reasons why has to do with social media and people talking about how amazing it is and how everyone needs to do it. And I don't believe that, not for a second. I'm going to explain to you why. Then you look at the ketogenic diet, which was reached its popularity in about 2016, 17, 18. And then you can see its popularity has severely declined to like 2010 levels according to Google. Okay. So you just look at people that are looking for the next diet phase, the diet fad. They're looking for the next new shiny object in order for them to get excited about until it's no longer exciting. And then they just want to move on to the next thing. Here's what's interesting is the paleo diet. So the Paleolithic diet, it reached its popularity as far as interest right around the same time that CrossFit started to come out. And the reason why is that a lot of CrossFit gyms were actually teaching the paleo diet. I actually have no problems with that as well. And in fact, that's actually probably how we should be eating in general. I say it in general without any kind of testing, but you're going to see what happened is that it reached its peak. And then it's at basically pre-2010 levels with the people that are looking for it. And it hasn't changed one bit. Neither has your genetics, neither has anything. Yet people are just looking for the next diet phase or diet fad. Okay. You probably have heard of this. If you remember about 6, 7 years ago, everyone was super interested in CBD oil. Okay. Just remember, CBD oil didn't change, but people's interest in it did. And then you see it reached a peak in about 2018. And then you can see that it's gone down quite a bit over the next several years, as well. So people just looking for the strategy in order to help them with their health problems. Now, I put this in as well because this is essential oils because, yes, at one point there was an essential oils craze. And you can see that that's gone down. And let me just say this. If you are, and I don't have a problem with essential oils and things like that. They haven't changed. But one of the things is if you are considering getting into essential oils, I'm going to say this. You probably have missed the boat if you plan on making a business out of it, especially, okay? Because the interest has gone down. Here's what's also interesting is if you look at the Wellness Way from 2010 all the way until now, you can see that interest has gone up considerably, okay? And I'm going to tell you this. The Wellness Way won't change. Our voice won't change. Our what we say is not going to change. It's just for a lot of people, it can become the bright, shiny object when it comes to the health. But just remember this, the thing that separates us from a lot of those other things is just going to be clinical results. Okay. So I look forward to that interest continuing to go up because we built the platform for interest to continue to skyrocket, as well. And so our mission is to change healthcare as we know it and to look at things from a different perspective, to be able to solve the health challenges that no one else can, only because we look at things from a lot different perspective. Okay. But I want you guys to understand this. Principles don't change. If it works, it works. It's not going to change. But the reason why people don't look for it anymore is because their interest in it does change. And that's why you have to beware of shiny object syndrome. Okay. You got to be just really careful when it comes to that. Okay. So let's go over the good and let's go over the bad over some of the popular diet crazes that might be out there as well. So I'll go over here's what's good about this, here's what it actually can be bad. And just remember, I've recommended all of these things for people, but I also have testing in front of me to actually say this would work the best for you. Okay. So let's go over the carnivore diet. All right. I know a lot of people reach out, and they'll castigate me just because I'm like, like I'm not a fan that every single person should do it. And just remember this, someone goes on carnivore diet, they have revolutionary results, and then all of a sudden they think everybody should do it. Be careful that you fall into that kind of trap, okay? So what is the carnivore diet? Is basically you're eating all animal-based products. So you're eating a lot of meat, you might be eating a lot of dairy, depending on who you're following, but you're really getting rid of a lot of veggies, you're getting rid of a lot of fruit and things like that. So the carnivore diet, okay? Here's the good, okay? The good with the carnivore diet is when you do it, you end up cutting out a lot of processed foods and a lot of carbs, and you start feeling better. And people are like, well, I feel better. My inflammation's going down. I'm like, that's interesting because you actually will be avoiding a lot of inflammatory foods or food allergies. And this might be an IgG, this might be an IgE. We don't know that unless you're getting tested. So that's why people tend to feel a lot better. But is there some bad involved with it? Yes. You know what's bad about it is that there's absolutely no fiber, which you may get away with it for a short amount of time, but it's not ideal for the long term. And I don't care what people say is that, yes, you do need soluble and insoluble fiber. You do need that. Okay. There's a reason why, because it actually feeds the microbiome. Even if you look at people who are radical carnivore adherents, like Dr. Saladino, he's changed his tune over the course of the last couple of months after doing it for a couple of years, because he started to see things change when it came to his blood work and things like that. Okay. Now, have I put people on a carnivore type diet? Yes. But I also told them I don't want you doing this long term. And I'm going to give you a clinical example. This is IgG food allergy testing. Okay. So you're looking at an IgG response to certain proteins in the food. When I go over this, I love when dietitians say that just means that you've been exposed to the food. And I'm like, I really want you to think about this, because this is looking at the protein within foods. And remember, your stomach is supposed to break down proteins. That's why we have stomach acid. Breaks it down from proteins into amino acid. Your gastrointestinal barrier is not supposed to see proteins because it will respond to food proteins. That might be a food protein, that might be a bacteria, that might be a virus, that might be a toxin. It's designed to eliminate any protein that doesn't belong within the body. So this individual came to me, this was a little while ago, and she had Crohn's disease, inflammatory condition that's affecting the small intestine, very inflammatory going on. They consider an autoimmune disease. I just consider it, yeah, you've lost a lot of barrier function and your immune system is really going after the barrier, and it's trying to get rid of all those proteins that it's seeing that it's not supposed to see. So when this person came in, she saw her food allergy test. She like lost it. She's like, what am I supposed to eat? So if you look at this and she's got like almost 30 different food allergies, you're like, well, what on earth is she supposed to eat? And I said, well, given looking at some of your other blood work, including your stool testing and things like that, I'm like, you know what would probably be one of the best things for you to do is to go on a carnivore type diet. So I want you to eat lots of meat, because you don't have a beef protein. You don't have a lot of proteins when it comes to eggs and things like that. You don't have an allergy to chicken or things like that. So I want you to focus on that, but at the same time, focusing on better digestion, because you just need to bring down the immune response that's happening around the gastrointestinal barrier. Lots of Crohn's disease, lots of chronic joint pain, lots of swelling and things like that. But I also was looking at some more testing than just this one as well. And then I was looking at stool testing. Okay. So then if you look at stool testing, you see what's going on. She's carrying a lot of pathogenic bacteria. You can see she's also carrying a parasite. So she had infection that was going on within the gastrointestinal system. You also see that she didn't have a lot of inflammation going on. One of the reasons why was because she was on immunosuppressants for her Crohn's disease. And in fact, if she decided to eat exactly the same, wait about 4 weeks, you'll see that inflammation come right back up and she's going to be right where she started again. So you can see that her digestion could have been better. She's carrying some pathogenic bacteria. See, had a lot of bacterial overgrowth. You can see she also had a parasitic infection that's going on. So yes, we did put her on a carnivore type diet. And yes, within 4 weeks, she lost a lot of weight. Yes, she felt a lot better. But at the same time, we also put her on some things in order to help with the infection, to help her with, to put her on some additional sources of fiber and things like that, things to help clear out a parasitic infection, lots of stomach acid to make sure that she's breaking some of those things down. So yeah, we did put her on a specific nutrition plan. Yes, it was kind of like the carnivore diet, but we also put her on some things in order to help keep her digestive system healthy as well. Okay. So in review, if you look at the carnivore diet, you cut out a lot of processed food, which can be good. You cut out a lot of carbs, which is why you can lose a lot of water weight and you're actually going to feel better because carnivore diet's the ultimate elimination diet. You are getting rid of so many different things that you could potentially have a food allergy to, but do it long term, even if you feel better. And then you're going to notice, yeah, things are going to start to go sideways after a period of time. Okay. So that's my take when it comes to the carnivore diet. Well, what about intermittent fasting? Or what about time restricted eating? I will say this, guys. You're not fasting if you go on a juice fast. That's not a fast. Fasting is um, you're very cognizant of you not eating any kind of foods. That is a true fast. And intermittent fasting isn't fasting as well, because fasting really requires you to abstain from food for about 24 hours. So intermittent fasting, a better word for it would probably be time restricted eating. Okay. So what's the good with time restricted eating? Well, it can be good because of this. You restrict your food to certain times, meaning like I may only feed myself for 8 hours a day or 6 hours a day, or I may only do one meal a day. And then it leads to you to stop mindlessly grazing all day. And yes, that can result in weight loss. Okay. Because now you're shrinking the time that you can eat your food in with some kind of self-imposed rule, whether that's 4 hours of feeding, 6 hours of feeding, 8 hours of feeding. Some people, when they start, they can only fast for 14 hours at a time or feed for 10 hours. And then they have to get good enough to where they can go down to about 4 hours. So the good is yes, it can result in weight loss because you're just not mindlessly eating all the time. But here's the bad thing with it. It can be really hard to get the required nutrients in only 1 or 2 meals per day. Okay. Now I want to show you something. I looked at about how much protein I need to be consuming every single day. And this is just based on weight and muscle mass and things like that in order to, to build my immune response, to be able to preserve muscle mass. Everything in the body is made of protein, bone mass, things like that. So I need to be getting 150 to 200 minimum grams of protein per day. And also I need 3,500 milligrams of potassium every single day, which you can't measure in your blood. You can't measure it because most of potassium is within the cell. So, and in fact, if you look at potassium, nearly everybody needs to be getting 3,500 to 4,000 milligrams of potassium per day. So here's my question. Can you really get that on OMAD, or one meal a day? Could you imagine how much I would have to eat, how much protein I would have to consume if I was only focused on doing that with one meal a day, which would be like some kind of time restricted eating of 20 hours of fasting and 4 hours of feeding? Because in that 4 hours, you really can only get one giant meal in per day. And it's really tough to get in the requirements for potassium and protein if you're only eating one meal per day. Okay. Now, what about the ketogenic diet? What about the ketogenic diet? So the ketogenic diet is a very high fat diet. And depending on, what people are calling ketogenic, your energy source is ketone bodies, which is why you use the ketone body strips or things like that to see if you're in ketosis. But basically, if you look at a ketogenic diet, it's going to be about 70 to 80% fat. It's going to be maybe 10 to 15% protein, 5 to 10% carbohydrate. And the good with that is that you stop eating a lot of processed carbs and you replace it with good, healthy sources of fat. Okay. So there's some good things that are associated with it, but is it something that I believe that you should do for a long period of time? And the answer is no. Mainly for a lot of the same reasons when you look at the ketogenic diet. But I don't feel like you should swear off vegetables and things like that, mainly because of the fiber content in it. But just remember this: if you're trying to do a lot of high intensity exercise, you probably won't feel very good on a ketogenic diet. And I'm not talking about marathon running. I'm talking about doing very high intensity, 5 to 10 minutes in length, getting your heart rate up to, 150, 160 beats per minute, absolutely exhausted, and in which at some point you need sugar in order to carry you through the workout. So you may not do very good if you're on it. And the bad is that you also don't have a gallbladder. Okay. You don't have a gallbladder. I had a discussion with a woman today. Was having problems. I know that she's insulin resistant and I know that she's having a heck of a time trying to lose weight. And she said this, she's like, I want to do kind of a ketogenic diet. I'm trying to see if I should do that. But here's the thing is she didn't have a gallbladder. So if you could imagine without a gallbladder, without the ability to be able to store concentrate bile and be able to release it, depending on how much fat you're eating, she's going to run into a lot of problems if she attempts that without any kind of direction, especially. So what does the gallbladder do? It stores bile, which is needed for fat digestion, for the emulsification of your fats, the breakdown of the fats, and also for the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K. This is why, guys, people get their gallbladder out and they're not taking any kind of bile acid replacement. I almost always see them very vitamin D deficient because you need the bile in order to absorb the vitamin D. You also need vitamin A for your immune system, K for clotting. So you need those fat soluble vitamins, but you're not going to absorb them very well if you're on some kind of ketogenic diet, high fat diet, and you don't have enough bile in order to be able to break those down. In fact, what it may actually do is it may give you really bad diarrhea because you're going to have a lot of undigested fats that just go directly through you, straight through you. And the body just says, I just have to get rid of it if I can't break it down. Okay. So generally speaking, and I'm going to speak on general terms, okay? General terms, because we always like to say testing, but from generally speaking, eat meats and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, and no added sugar, okay? I think that's how our body was actually designed to eat. Yes, we can run into some problems with our past history and things like that, but keep your intake to support exercise, but not body fat. And when I say eat meats and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, and no added sugar, that in itself is the paleo diet. That the name for it is actually the paleo diet. And your intake should support your body's ability to be able to exercise, but not body fat. Okay. Now, if you stop exercising, you gain 30 pounds, then one of the things you should have done is you should have decreased your intake. Okay. You need to decrease your intake. And I ran into this problem too. Growing up, I always played sports and I stopped playing sports only because I had to have a reconstructive surgery on my ankle. So I wasn't able to do literally anything for about 3 months and I gained 30 pounds. That was because I didn't eat very well and I basically ate whatever I wanted. I'm not telling you to do that, but my intake was not supporting exercise and it was supporting body fat. Okay. And this is why you see a lot of people, once they start to become less active, they don't decrease their intake. And what you see is that you see them consistently start to gain weight. And then they look at the bright, shiny object of what diet plan do I need to do in order to start losing weight. And they don't realize is that if you're doing it correctly, you may lose a lot of weight initially and you're going to see it slow down. And then they just try to move on to the next, whatever becomes the shiny object and move on to a different thing. And they just go from diet plan to diet plan to diet plan. Okay. I want you guys to remember this. Just because it worked for you doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone. Just because it works for you doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone. Sometimes even a blind squirrel will find a nut. Let me say that again. Sometimes even a blind squirrel will find a nut. And this is why, this was probably 10 years ago when I wrote the book, Transformation 28. I lost 40 pounds with what I did. I got rid of a lot of processed sugar and I was drinking a lot of protein to keep my protein levels up, and it worked for me, and it worked for a ton of men. But it didn't work as well for women, and because I wasn't doing any testing. And once I realized I really should be looking at testing, looking at a lot deeper, that's when I decided I'm not going to promote this at all. So I pulled any kind of promotion I was doing from a book, and I don't promote it at all. And that's why even if you see it on our link tree, it's like this is for men only because women are a little bit more complicated when it comes to that. But this is why I think that testing is important. And if you say, well, the carnivore diet that worked for me, I'm like, congratulations, you are a blind squirrel and you happen to find a nut, and it not isn't necessarily going to work the same for everybody when it comes to that. Okay. So what's the best diet for me? Well, this is what the best diet for you is that number one, it does not cause an immune system reaction. This is why I believe that testing is so important. Helps you feel energized, not tired. It feeds the body the required macro and micronutrients, depending on what your absorption is. And it's also really based on testing, which provides for you the roadmap. Dr. Nate, what do you mean regards testing? Everyone is different as far as what we do when it comes to testing. So you may need to get a stool test. You may need to get, um, gosh, for some people, it's like, let's look at an X-ray and let's see what the gastrointestinal system looks like. Let's look at a food test. Let's look at a stool test. Let's look at a no sugar panel. But it's going to be based on testing, which provides you the roadmap of how to get from point A to point B the quickest without causing any kind of collateral damage, especially to your health. Okay. Now, here's my final thought. Is it the strategy or is it the discipline to the strategy? Which one is important? Is it the strategy or is it the discipline to the strategy? And one of the things that I find is a lot of people, they just lack discipline. They just don't have the discipline to do things long enough to be able to see it through, to be able to carry out the results. The reason why is this: discipline is not sexy. It's not exciting. People don't listen to, they don't listen to, like podcasts on discipline. They listen to podcasts about motivation. They listen to music for motivation. They don't listen to music for discipline. And the problem with is motivation is short, it's temporary, and it's a feeling. Discipline is an action, and you have to develop it over time. Not everyone, you're not born with discipline. You have to develop that over time. So discipline is not sexy or exciting, but it's not exciting or sexy either. Your shiny object syndrome. That's not exciting as well, and that certainly is not sexy when people move from just every shiny object, just because it's new and they think it's exciting, and they think that this is what's going to really move me forward as well. And I'll add this into, because I talked about this at the inflammation talk. You are not 1 teaspoon of turmeric away from perfect health. This is why when people say, I had this is going on, what supplement do I need to, and they come to me as if I have some kind of secret supplement that I get, yeah, I just got back from the Amazon rainforest, and here's my secret supplement that you haven't heard about that's really going to move your health forward. Guys, there is no supplement that's going to move your health forward. It's about having the discipline to do the things necessary. And everything that we add to it is just supporting, making sure you don't become nutrition deficient, or to help with breakdown or absorption or things like that. But guys, you're not 1 teaspoon of turmeric away from perfect health. I will tell you this, okay? When it comes to your health, I will actually say this. What are some of the things when it comes to restoring your health? Number one is going to be stress. This is particularly true for women, because if you look at the physiological reaction, what happens with stress, you will see that stress can become an absolute killer when it comes to food breakdown, when it comes to the adrenal glands, when it comes to blood pressure, when it comes to the response that happens in your body when you're under chronic, especially mental stress. Then number two, you have to handle anything structural that's going on, especially when it comes to spine and nerve system, because structure equals function. If you have dysstructure, you're going to have dysfunction. And then the third thing you got to make sure is that you're lowering down anything that's triggering the immune system as much as possible. This is why we measure foods. That's why we do stool. Make sure you're not carrying infection, things like that. Because all those things, what they do is the body tries to adapt to it. And the body will try to adapt as much as possible. But a lot of times people come in when you can't adapt anymore. You start to enter into a disease process. That's when you start to feel really bad. So always think, guys, how do I get my health back? Think stress, structural, immune. Stress, structural, and immune. This is particularly going to be true when it comes to women as well. Okay. So, guys, if you haven't ordered it already, please make sure that you order the From Scratch cookbook. This is an absolute game changer, for you, because there will be good recipes that will be very allergy free if you have a lot of food allergies, but also you need to be focused on whole foods, and not, Oreos or, guys, I will tell you this, a lot of gluten free, foods that you get from a health food store, from the grocery store, is just a bunch of processed, expensive foods. And this cookbook is going to teach you how to start eating whole foods as well. So all you got to do is go to Linktree. You'll see I put that link up there, so you can go to the store and be able to order it. Just enter in code 5058. And that way they know I'm the one responsible for getting that book. But I know that there's already been thousands that have already been ordered. And they just did the book launch on Saturday for us. So this will be a very, very popular cookbook. Congratulations to Christy Flynn, Dr. Alex Fenley, for doing a lot of work in order to make this book available to a lot of people as well. And then, guys, don't forget, Tuesday, August 27th is our next inflammation event. Make sure if you're from the Chicagoland area, you get registered for that. This is a great, great event. We have a gift for you if you attend that event as well. But this will help you to look at things from a lot different perspective as far as where you need to start taking your health, and start looking at things from a different perspective. Remember this: you cannot solve the problems that you created with the same perspective that created the problem, with the same level of thinking that actually created the problem. That's why you have to start thinking differently. And you can get registered for that if you click on our link tree, and that'll be the first thing to come up. Click on that link. It'll take you to Eventbrite, and then you can get registered for that in about 30 to 40 seconds. If you register for it, my staff will reach out to you, and they'll also make sure that you're at that event if you register for it, because we plan to prepare for every single event. If you register for it, we're going to pretty much assume that you are coming. Okay. So if you are someone who's late or you don't show up to things, please don't register for it. Okay. So we put a lot of work into it, and we want to help you have a great experience at that event. So just go ahead and go to that link and get registered for our next inflammation event, which will be in about, I believe, oh, guys, what's the date? I think a week from Tuesday. Yes, it's going to be a week from Tuesday. I don't even know what the date is, today. So, are you sure about that diet? Okay, guys, there's a lot of good, there's a lot of bad with every single diet fad that's out there. There's some truth into some of them. There's also some things you shouldn't be doing long term as well. And the biggest takeaway that I will say is get testing first and foremost, so you know exactly what you should be doing and how you should be eating long term, especially. So, guys, if you like this broadcast, make sure you share it with other people. Make sure you follow our page. I sincerely appreciate everyone who follows our page, and especially for people who share it with other people as well. So make sure that you share this with other people, whether it's on YouTube or whether it's on Facebook, or whether it's on Rumble as well. Hi, guys, if you're watching on Rumble. I know I can't see any comments that are coming in, but I appreciate you as well. So, guys, I'll be live next week, next Monday. And if you have any ideas when it comes to topic, give me a topic of what you'd like to hear about, and I'll do my best to try to accommodate you as much as possible. So I don't know what I'm going to talk about, but I'm definitely open to events. So, Scott, the event is at our office, which is in Yorkville, at the Wellness Way, Yorkville. That's where the event will be located for the inflammation event. And yes, Scott, I have gone over statins. If you actually go back either on Facebook or on YouTube, I've talked extensively about statins and things like that, specifically fatigue and statins, muscle issues when it comes to statins. I've talked a lot about that, and physiologically you'll be able to understand, because here's what statins do and what they block, and they're blocking the production of CoQ10. And so that's why people don't tolerate statins very well. A lot of people don't, specifically athletes or people who do a lot of exercise. They don't tolerate them pretty well. And there's a reason why they don't tolerate them pretty well. So you can go back and watch that video. If you go to YouTube, you'll be able to see the full broadcast. And at the very top of it, you'll see live, and you'll see probably that on there if you just search for it just for a little bit. So, guys, I appreciate all of you. Thank you guys for your comments. I know I don't have an opportunity to be able to read all of them. I'll do my best if I can to respond to all of them. So, guys, be well, be blessed. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you next week, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. As I always say, remember who you are.